Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Destination Angler. We got a really good one today. Today we're going to be hitting the Upper Delaware River. My understanding this is the birthplace of American dry fly fishing and the crown jewel of the Catskills. Joe, what do you think? Is that true?
I don't know if it's 100% true. It is the crown jewel of probably the East Coast, but the birthplace, I mean, that's a lot of dispute on that, where fly
Really?
fishing actually started
Huh.
in the U.S., but the Catskills do take credit for it, but so does New England, and so does central Pennsylvania, and so does Michigan.
You
Take
can
it from where you want.
you can make a case. I guess the first brown trout in America were stocked in Baldwin, Michigan. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So who knows?
that's where Trout Unlimited was started.
Yeah, down the Saltwater River, you bet. So anyway, this is a tailwater system. It's known for clear, cold water all year long, highly selective fish, kind of a graduate school for fly anglers. Need precise presentations, light tippets. We're going to hear more about that from Joe. And it's one of the few wild brown and wild brown trout and rainbow trout fisheries in the East. So anyway, Joe, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. All right. So Joe's going to unpack all this for us. So Joe is a longtime guide. He's a fly shop owner, Upper Delaware River expert, and he owns Cross Current Outfitters in Hancock, Pennsylvania. Did I get that right?
No, it's actually Starlight, New York, next to Hancock. Actually, Starlight, Pennsylvania, right next to Hancock, New York.
Right next to
So we're
Hancock.
right on the border of New York and Pennsylvania, in the very,
Gotcha.
very northeast corner of the state.
Yeah. Been fishing the Delaware since the 1970s. Joe's appeared in many national fishing magazines like Field and Stream, Trout, American Angler. He's quoted in lots of different books like 50 Best Tailwaters to Fly Fish, Paul Weimer's Fly Fishing Guide to the Upper Delaware River. You guys may remember we did a show on the Thoroughfare with Paul Weimer, but there's more. He's appeared in several episodes of Field and Stream's Hook Shot series. He's done several instructional videos for Field and Stream magazine. He's a regular contributor to the Orvis Ask the Experts column, and he's on the board of directors for Friends of the Upper Delaware River. In 2010, he was named the Orvis endorsed Fly Fishing Guide of the Year. Man, you're a busy guy.
Try to stay busy.
Yeah, is that right? So you've been fishing this river for 50 years, is that right?
I don't like to do that arithmetic, but yeah, if that's the number you came up with.
Don't suppose you're planning on retiring anytime soon, are you?
I plan on not retiring.
Not retiring. Good. Just keep fishing, right?
Not retiring.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I going to retire from?
I don't know. What do you do when you're not fishing?
It's not like I work. I
Yeah.
go
Oh,
fishing.
it doesn't feel like
Yeah, I go
work to
some
you.
fishing. I do a little bit of hunting. I go fishing,
Okay. Yeah.
some bird watching and stuff like that. But pretty much anything outside.
How's how about that? How's the hunting in the Catskills?
I mean, it's not a place I would say you're going to get on an airplane to go to, but if you live nearby and you like to walk through the forest and look for grouse or woodcock, yeah, that's worth a walk, but it's not like, I wouldn't call it a destination per se like that.
Okay, good.
It's not like going to the UP or going up into parts of New England or even maritime Canada. It's not that kind of a place, but if you know your way around, yeah, you find birds, and
You find
it's
some birds,
enjoyable.
huh? Okay. Well, in Indiana, we don't have grouse anymore. They quit clear cutting down here, and we don't have them. I used to hunt them in the 80s and 90s, but not anymore. It's kind of sad. We have quail though. All right. So what
That's what
makes?
we don't have.
Yeah, you guys don't have quail, do you?
We don't have.
They like more open
No.
farm country, right?
Yeah, and we're too cold. We get very cold in the winter.
Oh, do you? Really?
Yeah, yeah,
So, all
below
right.
zero, like every night in January.
Wow. Yeah, that's cold. That's super cold. So, Joe, what makes the Upper Delaware such an iconic destination for fly fishers? I mean, I would call it iconic. What about you?
I think so. It's a challenging fishery. It's a tailwater, so we have cold water through the season, but it's not a tailwater in the sense of a lot of other tailwaters that kind of remain ice free throughout the winter. We don't really get that. We still do get frozen over, so we don't have that winter fishery really happening. There's a lot of shelf ice, bank ice. Sometimes the river will freeze across the top. The pools will freeze over. Riffles will freeze. So it's not that type of a tailwater per se, like you have in a lot of places. And that has to do with a lot to do with, reservoir releases and water management plans and things like that. So we're not a power um, tailwater, so it's not power dams generating every single day. So we don't have that uh, winter fishery, which is nice. It gives the fish a break. It gives them a chance to spawn. The browns, they spawn right now. They started, and they'll continue through November, and it gives them a chance to spawn. And rainbow trout get a break, and they get to rest, and they spawn in the spring. They're a little different. Um, by the time the season opens, and most of the rainbows are done spawning. So
Yeah. Right.
the keeps the fishery healthy.
Yeah. How about that? So why is it so technical? You always hear about how hard it is to do well on the Upper Delaware. What's going on there?
It's not as hard as it's alluded to. Just makes for a nice story. And if you do catch a fish here, it makes you feel like you're really, really good.
Right.
But it is more challenging, I would say, than most places because the fish are all wild. And that's not, there are a lot of other wild trout fisheries, but it is big water. There's a lot of flat water, so that makes it difficult, to get a good presentation. A lot of varying currents and swirls. I'd say it's more like fishing a giant spring creek more than your typical
Really?
tailwater.
Huh.
Yeah, it's more,
So you get a lot of that slow
a lot
flat
of
water.
flat. Yeah, we got a lot of slow water. I mean, there's a lot of riffle water too, but most of your dry fly fishing is taking place on these large pools. Some of these pools are a mile long,
Wow.
and they're slow, um, which makes it technical. It's also a very fertile system. Like the insect life is tremendous. So the fish are never lacking for food, so they don't have to be opportunistic. They can kind of get picky. We'll have multiple species hatching at the same times. And so fish will get selective on a certain species. And in that species, they get selective on a certain life form of it too.
Well, okay, so let's orient the audience a little bit. So where is the Upper Delaware? It's obviously a border river, right? Give us an orientation.
Yeah, a good part of it's a border river. So what it is made up of is the East Branch of the Delaware, the West Branch of the Delaware, and that joins right here by my fly shop, just like a quarter mile downriver on the West Branch. In Hancock, New York, that forms the main Delaware River, which goes for another 300 and something miles before it gets to the ocean. But the East Branch is entirely in New York State. That comes out of Pepatkin Reservoir.
Okay.
And the West Branch is about 15 miles long, and that comes out of Cannonsville Reservoir. And both those reservoirs are New York City water supply, drinking water. So it's managed very tightly because New York City dammed several major tributaries of the Delaware, and the water flow dropped really low back in the mid 30s, 50s. And anyway, it all ends up in the Supreme Court because of saltwater intrusion into New Jersey and into southeast Pennsylvania, that there was a decree passed that there had to be a minimum flow maintained in the main stem of the Delaware to keep the salt line its natural place. So that's how these water releases are pretty much regulated for that
Okay.
purpose.
Huh.
So certain times of the year we have a lot of water because they need a lot of water. When it's dry, they're releasing a lot of water because there's not much coming in to the river to keep the salt line down. And then when it's not, then there's minimum flows. And we have a plan in effect that takes in account the fisheries, but still primarily first and foremost, it's New York City's water supply. So it's kind of meant more for that than anything else. So the fishery started as an accident once these tailwaters showed up.
Huh. So the management plan is more to keep the salt out of the river system rather than keep the fish healthy?
Yeah, I mean, there is a component. I'm like Friends of the Upper Delaware River and Trout Unlimited. We're able to, and I don't want to get too much into the politics of it because it gets confusing, and I can go on for 2 hours at least on that. But there are 4 states that border the river that were affected. One is New York State, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the state of Delaware. And so the Supreme Court put this decree together that said, okay, all 4 states and the city of New York are involved in this. Okay. And over the years, and actually mostly in recent history, there's been some inroads made for the fishery, when New York City agreed to, provide water when water's available during more critical times of the year. And which, basically is the summer. So we do have a thermal bank. We have minimum flows that are decent. When a normal water flow year, you have a minimum flow of like 550 cubic feet per second coming out of the West Branch, which is pretty reasonable as
Yeah,
far as
substantial.
keeping the fish healthy.
Yeah, very good. So how much fishable water is there that, for trout fishermen?
So it varies. So in the springtime, we probably got 80 to 100 miles of water.
Oh, okay.
And again in the fall. And then in the worst case scenarios in the summertime, we're probably looking at total, let's say 15, 17, maybe 20 to 25 miles of the
Okay.
river.
It really does shrink down quite a bit. Is that due to just flow levels or is some areas of
Well,
the stream
water
warming up?
temperature. Yeah.
Water temperatures, okay.
Yeah. It's water temps.
Huh, interesting. And, never been there, but I've heard the scenery is really beautiful. Can you give us a sense of what things look like?
Yeah. We're kind of on, I wouldn't say we're like in the heart of the Catskills. We're kind of on the western edge of the
Right.
Catskills. So it's somewhat mountainous, hilly. There's not really a lot of gradient. That's why we have a lot of slower flat pools. There are stretches on the river where you do pick up some gradient. And you have more riffly water for a mile or
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's fairly even ground. It's not difficult to wade.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Most of the river is very easy to wade.
Is the main stem, does it get pretty deep? Is it a little harder to wade on the main stem?
Well, it can. Some of the pools, you're not going to wade. You're going to be able to wade too, but you might not be able to reach where the fish are. Uh,
Yeah.
they might be too far where it's too deep to get out to.
All right.
I mean, the river's not like, 50 feet deep, nothing like that. You're looking at 3 feet, 4 feet, some deeper holes, might be 6 to 10 feet.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not super, super deep.
Huh. So how wide is it in areas? Give us a sense of that.
Okay. So it varies. For people who fish out west, I'd say like the main stem, the closest river I can compare it to would probably be like the Clark's Fork, around Missoula,
Yeah.
that size of river.
Big.
Um,
Yeah,
you're
big.
looking at, I mean, it's not super, super wide, 200 yards across. The West Branch, it varies. It goes from narrower places to wider places. The East Branch changes. Like the first 15 miles of it is very intimate and almost small stream-like normally,
Okay.
except in high water times. And then that joins with the Beaverkill River, and the Beaverkill comes in, and then the East Branch gets a lot wider. Not quite as big as the main stem, but getting up in that kind of category of
Did
river.
you say 200 yards in places?
Yeah, maybe more even. I never really
Really?
measured
The
it,
main stem.
but yeah, 200 yards. Yeah, the main stem. Yeah.
That's big. That's big. Can you
Yeah,
wade
I mean,
across that?
some places just even probably a little wider.
Huh.
What's that?
Can you wade across it?
Sometimes, yeah. Like right now you can.
You
But
can't.
not the deep pools, but a lot of the riffles, the tail outs or some of the riffles you can get across. You gotta, watch where you're going and look
Huh.
at the water velocity so you don't get
Right.
washed over. But there are places right now you can wade across the river and really never get much over your knees.
Oh, no kidding. All right. And then as you get up into the East and West Branch, 20, 30 yards, give me a sense. What's the average up there? Probably
Yeah, they're
varies.
yeah, 100 feet to 300 feet.
Oh, okay. Still a pretty good size. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
That'd be on, the wider areas of the West Branch would be that.
Yeah.
Most of it, you're looking at 40, 50 feet in a lot of places. It varies. It gets wider in the slower stretches, it kind of pools out, opens up, and then
Yeah.
usually more riffle areas, it narrows down as it comes, loses gradient and comes down like a
Sure.
little chute.
Yeah. Cool. How's public access?
On the West Branch, it's very good. On the main stem, it's good, not very good, but it's good.
Yeah.
And on the East Branch, it's kind of fair. The East Branch probably has the
Okay.
least public access.
Yeah. So what do you do up there? I mean, can you put a boat in on, up top and float through it or
Yeah,
what?
it's okay. I mean, the East Branch isn't really floatable except in the spring, or
Okay.
if we get some serious rainfall. But, during runoff, it's a floatable river. After that, so like by late May, it's usually not floatable. But if you get a bunch of rain, then it is. And
Okay.
the main stem pretty much stays floatable throughout the whole season. The West Branch, just about the whole season, it'll stay floatable.
Okay. So you're doing
If
float
it
and
goes
weight.
off, it's off for a short time. Yeah, we do both.
You're doing both float and weight trips.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Huh.
float and wade trips, a lot of floating to wade, float, get
Yeah.
out,
Okay,
fish
cool.
in air.
I love that. So what I read was there's access points, but a lot of the bank is actually privately held, but there's plenty of access points. Do I have that right?
Most of the whole yeah, there's very little public land on the rivers. There are some accesses, obviously, that's public property. On the West Branch, there's probably a little more than a mile that's owned by the state of Pennsylvania. That's all public shore.
Yeah.
But as long as you're below the high water mark, you can just pretty much go where you want to go.
Okay, that's the rule then?
That is on the main stem on the West Branch, and it's in dispute on the East Branch.
Huh.
People are arguing that point, though. New York State last year came out with it's not a ruling, it's more of an opinion, I guess, that as long as you're below the high water mark, you're fine.
Yeah.
They're all navigable waterways. The
Sure.
state of New York says, no, it's fine.
Well, all right, fingers crossed. Comes out in favor of the anglers. Interesting. How developed is the land?
It's rural. Over the years, there have been a lot more vacation homes that have popped up, like you see in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So there are, you know, vacation homes and some year-round homes along the river, but there's like no industrial stuff along the river, really. You're not
Yeah.
gonna see anything like that.
So is it mostly wood as I'm fishing? From the videos I've seen, it just looks like it's wooded banks pretty much the whole way with an occasional
Yeah,
cottage.
pretty much wooded banks.
Nice.
On stretches, I mean, there are some stretches you go, well over a mile, and that's a house, but, the West Branch and the East Branch, that's not really gonna be the case. There's pretty much something, every few hundred yards, there's gonna be somebody's house either on the river or tucked back in the woods,
Yeah.
except where it goes through the Pennsylvania game lands, and that's the Game Commission owns that. So that's a little better than a mile where
Good.
there's,
Okay.
no development.
So is it do it yourself or with all this biomass and insect life? I imagine is it do you do it yourself or I can just walk in and stay in the general area and do pretty well? Is that what most people are doing or are they kind of waiting down to the next
Yeah,
takeout?
that's the vast majority probably,
Yeah.
people doing that. It's not really hard to find the fish. The whole river is good, but people tend to congregate around access points, you
How
know,
about that?
so no one really wants to walk,
Yeah.
I
'Cause you
kinda
gotta
I
walk
kinda equate it to,
upstream.
like, if you go to a lake.
Go ahead.
Well, you can walk downstream, you can walk upstream, but I kind of equate it to like if you ever ice fished or something, you go someplace, some lake, and one guy goes out and drills a hole and starts fishing, and someone else shows up and he doesn't know where to go, but he sees someone else there. He
Yeah.
figures that's the spot, so he goes there. The next
Yeah.
thing you know, you got 20 people in the
Yeah.
same little spot, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's the best spot. It just means that's where everybody's fishing.
Interesting. I bet it's not the best spot if everybody's there. I'd go somewhere else. So how it
Exactly. I mean, I
yeah.
have the view. I rather have two fish that are steadily feeding, and I'm the only one there. They
Yeah.
have 20 fish, and they got 15 or 20 people there.
Yeah, it's no fun. So with New York City and other metro areas being so close, I mean, should we skip the weekends if we want to avoid the crowds? What's your strategy there?
In the spring, it doesn't matter. It's like our peak season for people. It's not necessarily the best time to fish, but it's when everyone fishes. So
Yeah.
the spring is pretty busy, and it doesn't matter what day of the week. But then in the summertime, I'd say, yeah, if you can avoid a weekend, you're a little better off.
Yeah.
And then once you get into fall, it doesn't matter. Fall is not that busy at all,
Yeah.
and the fish is still good, but
Yeah.
it's just not busy. Where we're located, like we're 2.5 hours from New York City, 3 hours from Philadelphia, 4 hours from Boston, right?
Okay.
5 hours from Baltimore area. So it's not really far for
A lot
30
of
million
people.
people to reach,
30 million?
in a
Oh my
half day's
gosh.
less.
Yeah. Well, huh. What are you finding from a stream etiquette standpoint works well?
Well, you try to give everybody room, I mean, stream etiquette is something I've seen decrease over the years, not just
Yeah.
here, but everywhere. But you give people room pretty much. You do, if you don't want someone to fish close to you, you don't fish close to somebody else.
Right. What's close
And,
out there in a
you know,
crowded river? What's close in your mind?
It depends on the day. You know, the busier it is,
Yeah.
close becomes closer than when it's not busy.
I hear you.
When the river's not really, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's 100 feet, sometimes it's 400 yards.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. So if you're in a mile-long pool, I imagine it's fine to have a couple anglers in there and not feel close, but if I'm in a shorter pool.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not casting to the same fish, you're not poaching somebody else's fish,
Right. Right.
you know, jumping them, whatever. It's fine. I mean, the etiquette is remarkably pretty good from a lot of other places I've seen here. I mean, it is still pretty good.
Good.
You
Polite
know,
people.
there
I
are
like
times
that.
you witness things that you know
Yeah.
it's fly fishermen. Fly fishermen tend to be more looking for the seclusion on their own. So they
Yeah.
tend not to want to be you know tight with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I like the seclusion, but I've also found that if you just ask somebody, "Hey, do you mind if I fish over here? Which way are you headed?" That kind of thing, up or down, and
Oh, that goes a long way.
goes a long way. And you make a
That
friend.
people Yeah, you can make a friend, and a lot of people don't do that, and that's when there are problems that happen. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with a little bit of communication.
Right.
And you know what? And there are times someone does something, usually, very seldom it's intentional. It's usually just out of just not knowing. And then someone starts, having words with each other, and now everybody's danger prone. I mean, it's just a
Completely.
fish. Just go,
Yeah, we're just
yeah,
talking
somebody
fishing.
somebody stomps on your move, you know.
Yeah.
Just go find another place. It's not worth ruining your day. It's
Right.
just not worth doing.
Do you find people stomp into the river, "Hey, I'm here, I'm gonna fish," and they're walking right through some great water that's close to shore? Do you see that a lot?
Oh, yeah, I see that everywhere. No matter where I fished in the world, most people are standing where they should be fishing. They don't pay attention. They don't look. I mean, it is
Yeah.
a sport of observation.
Right.
See what's going on. Just walk out there and start flailing away. But you see that every place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's nothing new either.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all done it too. When you're first getting dialed in, you maybe just don't realize, I don't know, that there's fish right where you're
Well,
standing.
I get it. People are working all week. They have a day off to go
Yeah.
fishing. They're excited. They've been looking forward to it. They drive for, you know, a couple hours to several hours. Maybe they'll spend a few days, which, a lot of people do. So that they're pumped up. They can't wait to go fish,
Right.
and they charge right out. They just want to go fish. They can't wait. And I understand it. And they're excited, and if you weren't excited, you shouldn't be doing it, so that it's, you just got
Yeah.
to kind of take a deep breath, control your emotions,
Yeah.
uh, I kind of look at it, if you're a golfer, you don't just walk out there and whack the ball. You kind of look where you want to hit it, where you want to put it. You want to lay up. Do you want to go for the green? What are you doing? And you kind of have a strategy involved. You don't just go out there and just start smacking the ball around.
Yeah.
Same thing like if you're a hunter, you don't
Yeah.
just start shooting in the air and hoping you hit something.
That would definitely, especially grouse hunting. So when you take people on float trips, what's kind of the conversation as you're heading to the river?
It varies. We do a tremendous repeat client um, business on the guide side, and so a lot of these people, and you know them for years. So a lot of the talk is just catching up
Yeah.
on, how's little Johnny and how's this one,
Yeah.
and how was his first year in college, stuff like that. Uh, and then the fishing stuff will start, once you're on the water. We do a lot of, obviously we guide and we're going to put people on fish. That's what we want to do. But we also do a lot of education as far as making people better so they can leave being
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That's really important to us. And also just enjoying the day and understanding the environment and what's happening around you.
Yeah.
Even the entomology side too.
There's a lot of that there, isn't there?
Oh, it's super fascinating. And
Yeah.
if you don't embrace that part, I think you really miss the whole thing of fly fishing. If you're just looking at a product and not a process, you miss everything.
Product, not a product. That's interesting. What do you mean product and process? What's that mean?
Well, if you're just looking at, like, all you care about is catching a fish and nothing else, and
Yeah.
we're going fishing because we wanna catch a fish,
Yeah.
but, the reality is a lot of times the fish aren't biting, you know?
They're just sitting. Yeah.
So there's another aspect, and that's the insect life, the bug life, the wildlife, the
Yeah.
ecology, what is taking place all around you, and to embrace that part of it is huge to me anyway, because if you just flail away all day, and this happens, it's a slow day, bright sunshine, crystal clear water, bugs are on the water, nothing's coming up, they don't wanna look into the sun, and you're flailing away, you're nymphing, nothing's happening. And then now evening comes, you're exhausted,
Yeah.
and it lights up. Now you can't
Yeah.
do it. You just
Or you go
you're just
home. Trips
arms
over.
tired. Yeah. And so to take in the rest of it's super important too. You'll enjoy your day a lot better. You'll leave with more than just I caught a couple of nice fish. You'll leave with a whole experience and that's what you remember. You know.
Yeah. People wanna learn something,
Yeah, definitely.
hopefully.
It's a kind of pursuit that if you're not learning something every single time you go out, it becomes like, why are you doing it? It's very
Yeah.
boring,
Yeah.
so that learning something new every single time you go in the water, it could be something very small. It could be something, like an epiphany to you. It's all good
Yeah.
and everything in between. To look at the whole game we're playing, because it's what it is. It is a game,
Yeah.
If we're doing this for survival, we wouldn't be doing it the way we're doing it. So, look at everything around you, I mean, eagles flying, beavers, deer, bears, there's just a lot to see. Even the bugs themselves, just sitting on a rock and looking between the two rocks that your feet are in the water and you're on a rock and just looking what's swimming around between your feet, watching, days zip by, sculpins, nymphs walk along, watch a stonefly nymph nail another nymph and start munching it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I
like a
have not
lot
seen
going
that. Have
on.
you seen that? That sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to sit there and do it. You're not gonna see that micro environment that's going on unless you sit there and look for it.
You gotta
I
slow
mean, look
down,
for
it
it, it's
sounds
there.
like, right? Slow down a little
Yeah,
bit.
basically.
Huh, and observe. I once up in Michigan, we were fishing the Osable years ago, and my buddy picked up a rock, just to see what was going on, and as he picked it up, he had a mayfly hatch right before our eyes. That was cool.
Mhm.
I mean, we just lucky, just turned it over, and this thing started hatching right in front of us. I'll never forget that.
No, it's very cool, and if you like, oftentimes, you have bugs hatching, and because of the conditions, fish aren't rising, and, your instinct is just to walk around and try to find a fish rising. Well, guess what? It's bright, water's clear, it might be on the low side. Fish aren't gonna be rising. They're not rising by you, they're not rising any place. So it's just one of those parts of the day. But
Yeah,
you can watch those bugs get down, sit in the water, get down to their level a little better and
yeah,
watch what's going on. Watch right between you, floating by, you'll see nymphs, emerging, coming up to the surface. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff.
that's yeah,
Watch a stonefly come out or a dragonfly walk up, some grass
yeah,
and hatch.
see what's
It's
going on.
pretty cool.
So what are the major hatches, kinda take me through the hatch charge.
Well, the hatch chart, I mean, every single insect that happens in the east we get, plus maybe a couple other ones. The big hatch, the season that starts the season basically is the Hendrickson hatch. But before the Hendricksons, we have, early stoneflies, we have, blue quills, we have, betas, blue wing olives, we have caddisflies. But then the Hendricksons are first bigger mayfly,
When's
like a
that?
size 14.
Yeah,
That's anywhere from late April into early May.
okay, alright.
Generally, like end of April, it usually starts. And because the river that time of the year is so varied and diverse, and we have so much water to fish, the hatch might start on the lower end of the river sooner and then work its way up river. So you can be fishing a hatch that in most places only lasts 2 weeks. We'll have it for 4 weeks,
Just by
you know?
following it up and down the river.
Yeah, just by following the hatch. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But Hendricksons, March browns, green drakes, brown drakes, blue-wing olives, sulphurs. Isonychia is probably our longest hatch. It's a lot of places they just call it a slate drake in the east. But the Isonychia, that'll start in mid-June and go sometimes into November.
Really?
Um,
Huh.
and super long hatch. Bugs, very in tune to that bug. It's there almost every single day. So that's a very long hatch. And it does draw a lot of attention because it is a good hatch. And in sulfurs, because with tailwater, like most tailwaters, you have that monoculture, especially on our rivers in the upper part, the closer you are to the dam, it's very consistent water temperatures. They develop these monocultures of insects. So the sulfur is super dominant, from late June right into August, on the west branch and the east branch. And I mean, you can set your watch by it, and it's super heavy. It's probably the hatch that gives people the most difficulty because there's so many insects. It happens every day. Fish really get in tune to it. The water's slow and the water's clear. And everybody's always looking for that secret emerger pattern or secret cripple pattern. But it's a super presentation game. I mean, these are wild. You'll see fish refuse natural insects, and you're like, well, they're refusing a real
Okay.
one.
I'm cooked. I'm done. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Huh.
But it's totally a life form thing that, they just focused on. You might have one fish just eating cripples and another fish just eating emergers. And then it depends on where you are in the river. Most of these bugs are going to be hatching in the riffles at the heads of the pool. And then as you go down to the tail out of the pool, well, you had a lot of bugs that already hatched and flew away. And what do you have left in the tail outs? You got the stillborn mayflies, you have, you know, cripple mayflies, maybe a few spinners, but it's the junk, it's all the dead stuff. It's
That's what they
not the
like, isn't it?
emerging stuff
Yeah.
and that's what they're feeding on.
Yeah.
That's all they're seeing, you know.
Do you find the bigger fish are typically in the tail outs?
Not necessarily. It depends on the level. So the river depends on the type of day it is.
Mhm.
Uh, on the bright sunny days, bigger fish tend to be very structure orientated as far as the brown trout go, very structure orientated. Structure can be anything from a rock to a log to the bank, so it depends. When the water's high, bigger fish will tend to be, right tight on a deeper bank,
Yeah.
just tucked right against it.
Do you find the brown trout are just really tucked away during the day, and do they feed mostly at night, or what are you seeing?
When there's a hatch going on, they're out feeding, even the big
Yeah.
fish you'll find during a hatch.
Yeah.
But brown trout tend to be more nocturnal than the
Yeah.
rainbow trout. Rainbow trout will feed into dark and then they'll eventually stop. Brown trout will tend to feed well into the dark.
Yeah. Do you ever go out at night?
Yeah, we do. We do go out at night, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Right?
It's to try to explain to people if you can't really do it in the daytime, it doesn't get better in the dark. But it is good. Fishing is good at night, but it's not the same type of fishing. It's a little bit different.
What are you throwing at night?
You
Mouse
know,
patterns?
Well, we will fish mouse patterns at night, but it's
Okay.
not, or even spinner patterns too at
Yeah.
night.
Huh.
But, you do have to, get that Zen aspect going too, because you can't see anything.
Yeah. Do you have like a red filter on your lamp, on your flashlight? Does that help?
Yeah, but you never want to put your light on for two reasons. It does spook fish. If you could put a light on, red or green is better than white.
Mhm.
And the other thing that happens is there's so many bugs at night. You get midges coming off and mayflies and spinners are out. All kinds of bugs are hatching. And you put your light on, you can have your face covered. You
Huh.
put your headlight on,
Is that
you're just
right?
swarmed with bugs instantly.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you not to dwell too much in the night fishing, but it is kinda interesting. Is that typically waiting, or are you floating down to a spot that you really like
No,
and
we
you guys
typically do that from a drift boat.
Okay.
It's just a lot safer. It's a lot
Yeah.
safer doing it that way.
Okay.
And you can cover some water too.
And you know the
But then
river
again,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're doing it in a boat, I mean, you got to know that river.
Right.
If you wouldn't dare float it blindfolded in the daytime, you're not floating it at night unless you really, really know it. You go a lot by sound, a lot by knowing what's what, a lot by the tree line.
Yeah.
You know, so you know where you are, and what's coming up by the, what the tree silhouettes are against the sky. There's
Yeah.
a lot of it too.
Huh.
I mean, you can go out on a full moon and you'll see a lot better, but on a full moon, it kind of isn't as good.
It's not as good. Oh,
No,
interesting. Okay.
no, it's better on the dark. Darker the
What's your
better.
what's your setup? 5 weights, 4 weights, liters, tippets, that kind of thing?
9'5" is 9'5" is I would say pretty much the standard, and it depends on how you're fishing. If you're wade fishing, 4 weight's fine. From a drift boat, it's kind of fine too. But in some of the deeper pools, especially with the browns, they just like to go to the bottom and shake their head a lot and stay there. And you do want a little lifting power when a
Okay.
fish is tired. You don't want to wait till
Yeah.
a fish is so exhausted he's floating up to the top. You want to land them when they're still green, so their survival rate's improved when you release
Yeah.
them.
Get them in quicker. What tippets are you using?
Mostly 5X in the spring, 4X early spring, and I'd say 5X is pretty much standard. Maybe
Okay.
get down to 6X in the summer to small flies.
Okay, smaller flies and lower, clear water?
Yeah, it's not even so much the lower clear water, it's the size of the fly that is going to matter. A fish doesn't know your tippet from a blade of grass floating on the water, but they do know a fly or something floating down unnaturally that might be pulling across the top. It's not
Mhm.
really a natural presentation. The smaller flies, that's when you have to get down on 6X so you get that better presentation.
Mhm.
We do most of our dry fishing is on a downstream presentation too. We're not casting upstream to a fish.
Yeah.
We're casting
Interesting.
down. And you want that
Downs
fly going first.
Mhm. So you're gonna do a lot better if you're downstream, if you're fishing downstream then, dry fly.
Yeah, you can do a lot better fishing downstream. You get a much
Huh.
better presentation.
Interesting. So how does that work? I've had a couple people on my show talk about downstream presentations, and I always find there's some challenges with that, right? Because when you set the hook, you're pulling it out of the fish's mouth. So what do you do about that, for instance?
Well, you don't fire off too fast. You just gotta time it. Now you got to remember the more line you have on out, so the longer your cast, the quicker you need to respond because there's that distance,
Yeah.
reaction time
Yeah.
by the time to the fly, and
Yeah.
you might have some slack in your system. Get that out, and the closer you are, you don't want to be too quick either. And I can tell you what, my 30 plus years, 3 years or whatever guiding, I've seen more fish missed because people were too fast and they were too slow.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So
If fish really wants you to fly, he's going to get hooked. He's going to take it, turn, hook himself virtually.
do you have them count to
So you
3
just need to
or
pull this.
say God save the queen
No,
or
I
something?
don't, because then again, yeah, no, it really just depends on how long your leader is, how much slack you have out there, and it becomes more of an instinctive thing
Yeah.
with it. It's like kind of a natural hand-eye coordination type of a thing that goes on. It's not something you can really just teach somebody. It's okay, count to 3, lift, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get the fish. It doesn't always work that
More
way.
instinctive, sounds like.
Yeah, it's very, very so.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
experience maybe.
Right. So if you're fishing downstream, you put a fly over a fish, he doesn't take it. What's your process? What do you tell people to lift and get that fly back up in the air and do another cast without putting more
So you
fish
gotta let the
down?
fly go by. If you let it go by, fish doesn't take it, you let it go by, you can make a slight bend toward you, wherever side you're on from that fish. So if you're on the left side of the fish, you can just make a slight bend to the left, very small bend, just the back of the fly line. And that little loop that puts in, that's gonna pull the fly away,
Away to the side?
and
Huh.
then you can just strip it in real slow, pick it up, do it again. But don't be in a rush.
Okay. You don't want that sound
Yeah,
that
don't
people
be in a rush to. You miss a cast, um, and you see the flies past the fish. Lifting that line off the water is going to put the fish down. It's going to spook
Mm,
them.
yeah.
And if you just let it go by, like nothing happened, just like it's a stick floating past, 99% of the time you'd be okay.
And you just slowly strip it up to a point where you can
Yeah,
lift
and
the
slowly
line.
strip it up.
Huh.
Yeah.
How important is positioning? You get your boat in position. Like, do you target a rising fish, get the boat in position, and then start casting? What do you
Yeah, you
do?
target you target a specific fish. You target a specific fish. Being where where you want to be is super important. Someone once said, long, long time ago, I don't even know who it was, but I heard it probably 50 years ago. It's called angling because of the angle you're taking. When you're in a boat, it's a little harder to adjust if not exactly in the right spot. It's a little harder to adjust a 15-foot boat or a raft. But if you're waiting, one step, two steps, up, down, back, over, whatever you need is huge. It makes a huge difference.
So what are you looking for from an angle standpoint?
45 degrees or sharper downriver.
Okay,
From 45
interesting.
to straight down, basically. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, you do fish straight down on top of them, then I feel like you'd
Oh,
wanna
yeah.
have
A
your
lot of times it's straight down.
okay,
Sometimes
okay.
that's the only way you can get a presentation. You
Yeah,
get too many alternating currents. You put that line, the current's going to affect your line. It's going to take your
yeah,
line, and
right.
and then your fly could be flow straight. So
Huh,
the thing I tell people to look at on with their fly is two things to focus on. One is speed of the fly, that is floating at the same speed as everything else on the water,
mhm,
everything that like what the fish are feeding, and also the direction it's going. So you have to have both those things. You can have the right speed in the wrong direction. So the fly might be
yeah,
coming toward you or going away from you instead of right toward the fish like everything else he's feeding on. Because they will get on specific little seams that are kind of almost micro seams, and fish just feed just off that one seam.
huh,
So you got to ride that same spot. So
yeah,
accuracy becomes really important. I mean,
huh,
fish aren't like intelligent, really. They're just wild animals,
mhm,
reacting to their environment. And if everything they're feeding on is coming a certain direction, a certain speed, they're going to just feed on that, and you
yeah,
take that out of the equation. That's not what they're eating. That doesn't look like what they're eating.
right,
So presentation becomes, is so much more important than the actual pattern you select. You
yeah,
know,
huh.
presentation, big,
How often do you change flies?
seldom.
Seldom, because you know the
You
river
know
so
that
well, I imagine.
well, you know what they're feeding on.
Yeah,
If you're not eating what you're eating, more than likely it's presentation.
yeah,
So if you have two or three different things that fish are feeding on, you can't really see which they're taking because it could just be on emergers. And what are they eating? Which emerger are they eating?
mhm,
Well, then maybe you'll change flies to do that. Uh, but I think what happens often is someone makes 20 casts with one fly and they don't get a take. They change their fly. They make another few casts. They don't get a take. They change their fly again, and then they hook a fish. Now, sometimes they finally picked up on the right fly. But
mhm,
oftentimes what I've seen is that they finally got the right presentation.
ah,
Every time they're making a cast, now your first shot is your best shot, right? But so every time you're making a cast, though, you're getting more wound up. You're getting more, anxious about it. So when you change that fly, you just took a little breather. You calm
uh-huh,
down. Now you're starting fresh. You know,
yeah,
um, so changing flies is good from that part of it. But there's no secret fly. There are patterns that do work better in at than other patterns at times, in certain types of water, certain situations. But it's not like the end all right there.
more of a
If you
presentation,
don't make a good cast, I don't care what fly you got on.
right.
If you don't have a good presentation, it's not going to.
Heard guides say this all the time, "What were you using?" And they say a good drift, it doesn't
That's it.
matter.
That's it. What are they eating? They're eating a good drift.
Yeah, they're eating a good drift. So, speaking of flies, I'd love to hear you talk about some of the patterns that you think are kinda your confidence patterns, and how important is it in your mind to have confidence in the patterns that you're fishing?
Like anything, if you don't have confidence in your gear, and
Yeah,
that includes your fly, you're not going to do as well with it. Years ago, I used to play golf, and I knew guys like if the ball wasn't, a 7 on the ball, they didn't have confidence in that ball. What's the difference? But that's how it.
mattered to
That's
them.
how your mind is.
Yeah.
So having confidence in your fly is very important. Like I like emerger patterns here. I mean, very seldom am I fishing anything else.
Huh, really?
And if it's on scud hook. even better yet.
On a scud hook, okay.
I'll tie all my emergers on scud hooks.
Huh,
Sparse,
yeah.
nothing too complicated and addressed, and that's it, so the right size, and then, the colors are important on certain flies. Sulfur color could be very important because it's a sunny day, fish can see that color, even though they don't usually worry about color as much, but they can see the color. So if it's a bright yellow, you want a bright yellow fly, you don't want like a PMD color fly, because they're not focused on that. That's not their trigger point. Trigger points on that richer yellow. So that can make a difference. But still, again, it's going to be presentation. It's going to be the life cycle of that fly.
Yeah.
So here mostly we're fishing our emergers and spinners, and occasionally duns. We don't,
What
duns.
interesting.
I mean, duns work, but
And I bet most anglers wanna fish duns before they fish those other 2.
well, if you look at it this, what the fish are going to focus at, this is how I see it. They're going to focus on what there's the most of on the water, right?
Mhm,
So in the beginning of a hatch, what's the most? The most is emergers.
mhm.
And then midway through, there's just a lot of duns maybe still on the water, right? And so they might switch over to the duns, but they'll still take an emerger. And then when there's spinners on the water and they're focused just on eating spinners,
Mhm.
that's what they're going to eat,
The
spinners.
spinner can be a
You
totally
put a
different
dun in
time of
front of
day
them.
too, right?
Oh yeah, typically it's gonna be the evening into the dark, but early season when it's still cool, it's very air temperature driven. So you can have spinner falls 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock
Mhm.
in the afternoon. This time of the year, same thing. You can have spinners in the morning in the summer when it's too hot in the evening, and so they
Hmm,
don't come down.
yeah,
They'll come down in the morning, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. You'll get spinner
sure.
falls. So it's just depends.
Keeps you jumping, keeps you hop, keeps you thinking.
There's no always, there's no never, there's no smoking gun. If it were that way, it would be super easy. Everybody be catching fish all the time, and they get
Yeah,
totally bored with it, and they'd be on the rivers.
right, right. Be ready for anything, it sounds like. So back to their merger pattern. So describe that pattern a little bit. So, tail, body, wing case, what are you using?
Yes. So, whether it's an Antron, or a Zelon, or a EP fiber, um, shuck on the fly,
Mhm.
and use dubbing for just whatever dubbing is your favorite
Yeah,
for the body, and then a simple wing, whether it's snowshoe, synthetic like an EP fiber or a CDC,
just a little tuft sticking up.
but just yeah, I mean it's
Huh,
enough that's going to float the fly, but you want that tail end down in the water, so it just looks like an emerging insect.
okay. You like a little rib on there?
Sometimes on some flies have very prominent ribs, like March Browns. So on March Browns, I rib them all. I use a little bit of silk, and rib it. On other flies, I do like quill bodies, especially on Hendricksons. I like to use a quill body,
Interesting.
or
Huh,
even a biot body, not necessarily
yeah.
quill. I'll use biot more. It's just
Huh,
easier, and instead of just dubbing it, but dubbing it's fine. You can even just use thread to put a subtle rib on a fly
yeah,
too.
right.
But less is more. You don't want to make the body too fat.
Okay. How much is do you change size before you change color, or do you just know this so well you don't need to even change size? You know
I'll
this.
change size. I'll change size first.
Okay.
I'll drop the size. 'Cause even when you know the right size, a lot of times these fish will tend to just take the smaller fly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why. Who knows? But they
Yep.
do.
Yeah.
But I'll change size first. I'll change tippet second, and then go lighter on tippet.
Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. So how long do you fish with, say, a 14 before you switch to a 12? Like, what has to happen before you're like, okay, I'm definitely going to drop down in size and change my fly?
Usually it's refusals. You start getting
Okay.
refusals.
See the
So if you
fish
get a
come up.
refusal,
Boom.
everything was good with your presentation, and fish wouldn't have moved to your fly to begin with, right?
Hmm.
The fish came to the fly and at the last second decided that, nah, that's not food. It's nothing real. What was that difference?
Yeah.
Was it the color? Was it the size? I find more often than not it's the size than anything else. So I'll go down on size before I change colors.
Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. Well, I'd love
Sometimes I
to.
do both at the same time.
Yeah. Love to see some pictures of some of these patterns that you've got, this just so people can see what a sparse fly looks like and something on a scud hook versus a straight hook. I think that's really interesting. All right. Shift gears a little bit, Joe. Tell us a little about your journey. So you started this journey when you as a little kid? How'd that happen? How'd you
Oh, yeah, I
start?
started as a little kid. I mean, like most people or just about everybody I know, started, you know, basically soaking bait as a little kid. I was probably like 3 years old. My grandfather would take me fishing every day, and he had just retired, and we just go fish. I was a cane pole guy, until I was
Perfect.
probably about 7 years old. I got my first regular fishing rod, which was a Ted Williams Sears and Roebuck rod. And then my early teens, I don't know exactly if I was 13, 14 years old, something like that. I watched these 2 older guys that would be catching fish, fly fishing, and I'm there throwing rooster tails and whatever, I would have in my box at these
Yeah.
fish. And these old guys, amazingly, I mean, today they probably would have threw rocks at me or drowned me or screamed at me, but they never did. They just tolerated.
Yeah.
But I would see them catch fish, and I said, "Oh, I got to get one of those rods."
Yeah.
And I talked my mother into buying me a fly rod, and I didn't know what to get. I knew nothing about it, but all I knew was from reading magazines and books, and that Lee Wolf fished with a Garcia rod. And at the time, I didn't know Lee Wolf was a rep for Garcia, but I just figured Garcia was the rod. So I got a
Can't go
Garcia
wrong.
Conilon fiberglass rod and a South Bend reel. I think the whole outfit cost me $8 or $9, or it cost my mother that, which
8 or
was
$9?
hard to
Wow.
talk. Yeah, yeah. I
It's a
remember
while
the reel
ago,
was
Joe.
$3, but yeah, it was a while ago. And that rod, caught my first trout on it, and then several years later, I kind of got with the program a little bit and realized that if I had a better rod, I could do better. So that went into a Fenwick glass rod, and then I had that rod for quite a while, and then graphite showed up on the scene, and went through a whole bunch of different, very inexpensive graphite versions back
Yeah.
then. And that's just kind of became an addiction. I mean, for a long time, I wouldn't do anything but fly fish. I became a real fly fishing snob, and it was probably somewhere in my ease. I said, that's kind of silly. There's a lot of other fishing I can do that, fly ride isn't going to be the tool that I could still go back and do. So then I started doing that stuff again. But whatever I can, if a fish there's any chance a fish is going to eat a fly, I'm going to use a fly. I don't care
Yeah.
what the
I'm the
fish
same
is.
way. So back to when you were a kid and these 2 older guys that were putting up with you, did you stay in touch with did they teach you how to fly fish then, or did you stay in touch with
Yeah,
them?
so they did. They thought it was kind of cute when I showed up with a fly rod, and
Ah,
they watched me for a few years, and then one of them gave me a vise. He used to tie flies for a local shop, and he gave me a vise and some hooks and a bobbin and some necks that I didn't know, the difference then, but kind of explained to me how to tie flies. Didn't really show me, but explained to me. So I stumbled around. We had no YouTube then, right? I bought a book. I couldn't even understand what they were saying in this book. But so I'd wrap some feathers on hooks. I still have that vise. And what
wow.
was interesting then, just a little kid, and then go a half a decade later or a decade later, and I meet my wife, and it turned out that these guys were friends of my father-in-law.
Really? That's
So
amazing.
then, yeah, yeah. So then I would fish with them occasionally, and they then they taught me more about how to tie a fly and stuff, and then then they left this world, and then in my early 20s, I just got more into tying and picking people's brains that I met and became friends with, and that were accomplished
Yeah.
anglers and fly tyers.
Yeah.
Just took it from there, found some good books. And then by the time YouTube showed up, I mean, that became more entertainment than educational at that point. See
Yeah.
different things,
Uh-huh.
but there were some great books back, I'd say in the 90s maybe, that came out
Yeah, like which books did you
that
like?
people just don't use anymore.
Yeah. Which books did you like?
Well, some of these books weren't so much totally for the beginner, but like the Fly Tires Guide, I think it was Leeson who wrote that book. That the Fly Tires Desk Reference, I think it was
Hmm.
called.
Yeah.
I still have it at my shelf. It was a great book to show you different. Like this is how you tie a parachute. This is what a paradigm is. This is all these different things with some really good pictures to make life easy and educational. And then I remember someone gave me two of them. They were like those ring binders, like you had when you were in school. But it was put out by Orvis, and each one had a different plate for different patterns.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen that.
How to tie a
Yeah.
Cahill, how to tie this, how to tie
Yeah.
that. So that
Yeah.
was really good for me because I can just take that one laminated page out and prop it up when I was tying a fly, and there was all the
Yeah.
directions.
Yeah. Huh.
So that was a kind of big jump in the learning. I haven't seen that around in probably 20 years, but that was good. But I think a lot of these things, the internet took over that stuff.
Yeah. What would you say was the wildest thing you've seen on the river, either with people or wildlife or whatever over these years?
I don't I don't know. It's like every day something new that becomes the newest wildest thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's some cool things I've seen. I think it's really cool. I've watched, eagles and ospreys fight over fish. I think that's cool.
That's cool. Huh.
I've watched, this was really cool. There was an eagle eating an eel, and then two vultures came in and they're trying to steal the eel from the eagle,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
managed to get a chunk of it from the eagle. And then two crows showed up and they're trying to steal it from the two vultures. And then they finally got a piece of it from the vultures. It was kind of a cool thing to watch
That's
take place.
wild.
But, uh, just everything is a wonder to me.
Huh.
Seeing porcupine swim across the river, and you're looking down, like, what the heck is that thing swimming across the river? And you get up
Yeah.
close and it's like, oh, it's a porky. Never saw porcupine swim before,
Porcupine swim? That's a new one.
I never
Yeah.
saw it, but
I'm not helping
since then
him
I've
out of
seen
the
it a couple
water.
of times.
What's
But
it?
yeah, no.
Wait, so you've traveled quite a bit, right? I know you've done a lot of saltwater fishing, right? Bahamas and different. What's like the
Yeah, I've
most?
done a lot of saltwater fishing.
Yeah. Huh.
Um, to me, when it comes to fly fishing, I like when it's sight fishing. I don't like just blasting stuff around. I
Hmm.
like the visual part, and not that I don't streamer fish or any of that, or blind fish, but I will if I have to.
Yeah.
Um, saltwater fish, I really like bone fishing because to me it's almost like dry fly fishing, but 1 foot underwater.
Yeah.
So I like that. Uh, I like that whole challenge of it. I like the visual part of it, and also deciding if you're going to cast at a fish or not. It's like that's a little guy. I'm not going to I'm
Yeah.
not going to bother the little fish,
Yeah.
and so
Huh.
you can kind of be a little choosy, a little selective.
Yeah.
And there are other things. I mean, I know people ask me a lot of times. You're probably going to ask me this too, so I'll beat you to it. But they ask me like, what's your most favorite fish to fish for? I would say probably trout because I've done mostly trout fishing, with a fly rod in my life. But I really have to say it's whatever I'm fishing for at the moment. I mean, I could be on a little pond catching sunfish on poppers, and at that time, there's nothing else I would rather be doing.
Joe, you just like fishing.
It's all good. There's no downside to it.
Where did that come from? I mean, seriously, like, what do you think's going on in people that just love to fish? Are you born with that or is it developed? I mean, you said your grandfather took you almost every day when you were a little kid.
Yeah, my grandfather took me every day. Now you gotta realize my grandfather was an immigrant. Like he didn't fish. We didn't go fishing. It wasn't a sport to him. It was going to catch dinner.
Really? Yeah.
But it's I don't know. It's something you're born with, I guess. It's a hunting instinct, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
You
You like
know,
to
you,
hunt
you,
too. So
you know.
you've got that
I like to hunt. I like to gather too. I like to. I forget what the word is they use today, but I like to go pick mushrooms in the
mushroom.
spring and
Okay.
even in the fall.
Do
And
you? Okay.
I like
Huh.
to grow vegetables. I like to. I mean, that's.
Okay. You're a hunter, a gatherer, and a fisherman. You got it all covered.
I guess that's what it is. I don't know. I was
What's
never a
it?
TV watcher,
Yeah. Same
so
here.
you know.
No, people are like, how do you do all these different things? Well, I don't watch TV and I've never sat and watched a 3 hour football game. I know there's probably tons of people out there. Nothing
No,
wrong
I
with
don't.
it.
I
I just
don't. I
can't
don't
do
watch
it.
football.
I cannot
No,
sit there that long.
I don't either. I mean, I
Yeah.
went through a time in life where I played golf, and I could understand how people like golf. I played it. I
Yeah.
liked it. I thought it was a great game. But every time I played, it's like, okay, here's this 4-hour commitment I just took, and I'm playing golf, and it's such a beautiful day. Man, I wish I was fishing.
Yeah.
It would always
That's what's
come into
going
my
through your
head.
mind. But all right, so Joe, what surprised you the most about your fly fishing journey? Because you're a fly shop owner now. I mean, you get a guide service. I mean, you've done a lot. You've been in books, you know.
I don't, it's what surprised me the most is,
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, I think what surprised me the most is people had told me when I first decided to do this professionally that, you're making a mistake because you're going to end up hating it, and not wanting to do it. But that wasn't the case. And I met this other guide years ago in Canada who, and I was very new into guiding, and he said something to me that left a big impression. He was, and he was someone who guided his whole life, still loved to fish himself, wasn't sick of it, anything like that. Loved to guide, loved to fish. But he said, everybody has a pile of fish that they have to climb over in their life. And some people will never get to it. But he said, you really can't guide until you've climbed over that pile. It's like and I understand it. And it took me a few years, but I'd rather see you catch a trophy brown trout than me
Huh.
catch it myself.
You've
As
caught
long as I'm
enough.
in on it. I just got to be
Yeah,
I
you've
just got to be
already
there. I
you've
wouldn't say I
climbed
caught
over that
enough.
pile. Yeah. Huh.
I guess, but I'm just totally happy to see you do it. As long as I'm in on it,
Good for you.
it's
Huh.
it's like going on an elk hunt with a couple of friends. As long as, if someone else gets a bull,
Be happy
I'm
for
just
him.
as happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Right.
it's like we're all in this together.
There's an article in, I think it's Fly Fisherman this month about Von Chenard. I think that's the article where he talks about kind of 4 levels of fishing. First, I want to catch a fish. Then I want to catch a lot of fish. Then I want to catch a big fish. Then I just want to go fishing, I think is the 4th level. I just like being out there.
Yeah, and yeah, someone came out with that a really long time ago. I remember reading that same thing. I don't remember, some famous outdoor writer, I think. But there's a lot of truth to that. When you first start fishing, and I see it. I've seen it in people. They just want to catch a fish. Period. And in fly fishing, you see there's a couple of other elements because you see, I just want to catch a fish, and then it becomes, I want to catch a lot of fish, and I want to catch a big fish. But then it also becomes, I want to catch fish just this way. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
maybe
like
that's
I want to catch
yeah.
a big fish on a dry fly, or now it becomes,
Mm,
caught him on a dry fly. Well, I want to catch a big fish on a size 22 dry fly.
yeah,
You know,
right.
you know.
Something I
So
tied maybe.
so we yeah, exactly, and we throw these things at ourselves to keep it interesting, to keep it from being boring, and keep
Yeah.
ourselves more involved in everything.
What have you learned about people from all your years of hanging out in fly shops and guiding and whatnot?
It's one thing I've learned is that I've been very, very fortunate because I've spent basically my adult life, um, fishing with and associating with some of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. What I've learned is that, whether you're on the river or you're in the woods, whatever, people change. They become who they really are. And
Huh,
most people are super nice people, even though you might work for a guy who's the biggest creep in the world. When he's with me, he's the
he's
nicest
not,
man you'd ever want to
because you're not
meet.
gonna take him if he's like that,
He's
at
not.
least again.
No, and the guy who is like that when he's fishing, you don't want to see him when he's not.
Yeah, exactly. You ever taken some famous people fishing and you're like, "Well," you either thought this guy's such a great guy or you kinda ended up thinking the opposite?
No, I've taken some people who are very, very well-known people, whether it's in the business world or in the sports world, entertainment world, even in the fishing world. I've really, I gotta say, there's only been one person in my entire career I've ever met that I wouldn't want to fish with again.
Oh, no kidding. Good for you. It might have a
Yeah.
little bit to do with you and how you approach things, I'm guessing.
I don't know. I mean, it's just the
Yeah.
way it's been. So I consider myself fortunate that way.
Do you look back and say, "Gosh, I've been doing this for" are you surprised that you've been doing this for, what, 50 years now?
No, because I don't believe I'm old enough to have been doing it that long.
You're maturing, Joe. You're not getting older. You're just maturing.
No, I know. I'm starting to reach the age of maturity. I do understand that.
That's my wife,
There
though.
are aches and pains.
I got a ways to go. All right. So if there's probably a lot of people listening to this podcast who have thought about becoming a guide or, buying a fly shop or something. What's one piece of advice you can give some of the younger guys who are thinking about getting into this industry?
Be a sponge, first of all, and be careful who you mentor with. That was something early on in my career that I made a conscious decision on. It was, who am I going to learn from?
Hmm.
And I sought out what I thought was some of the best people and most ethical people in the industry to learn from.
Like
And,
who?
and
Can
I
you
think
tell
that's
us?
super important. Yeah, people like Tom Rosenbauer, who's a big influence on me early
Oh,
on, and we've
yeah,
become
no
friends over
kidding.
the years. Guys like Kurt Dieter,
Huh.
you know, and some
Yeah.
younger guys now we become really. I mean, I'm old enough to be their fathers, but they're just great guys,
Huh.
and I think they've learned from me. It's how they look at it, but I feel I've learned a lot from them. Guys like Joe Somali. These are young guys,
Yeah.
but they're the real deal. The other thing is, as I tell guides and guys who work for me, but the one thing I always look for, and I've made a couple of missed calls in my career, but just a couple, is I don't want someone coming into guiding who's running away from something else.
Mm.
I want them
Hmm.
to be coming into guiding because that's what they want to do, that they're
Uh-huh.
passionate about doing that. Not
Yeah.
that they're running away from something.
Yeah. That's got to be a tough interview question. Are you running away from something?
Yeah, but you know what? It's a tough question for them to answer, not a tough question
Do
for me
you
to
ask them that?
ask.
You'll ask them that directly?
Oh
Huh.
yeah, yeah. Like, why do you want to do this? What are you doing now, and why don't you want to do it
And you
anymore?
you can hear the answer, like, if they are running away from something. Yeah, that's
Or you can tell
interesting.
right away. But it's super important. And that's, I think, in everything. It's not
Yeah,
just in fly fishing. I mean, if you're looking to get rich, no, go become a lawyer or something.
yeah.
You're
Huh,
not going to get rich in the business. It's just not what it is. But
yeah.
if you're looking to have a lifestyle, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. You can't count your hours. You can't, you know, rate things the same way.
Yeah.
You can't look at it as like, I'm going to work, 8 hours a day and that's that. It's just a way of life. It's not
Uh-huh.
a job.
It
So
sounds like you're taking people out in the
I guess
evenings and at night and whatnot on your guide trips.
yeah,
Okay, that's great. A lot
yeah.
of places don't do that. We're 8 to 5, 8 to 4. That's it, you know?
No, I discourage that actually. I mean, none of my guides who work for me, if you're on hour 9 and now the river wakes up, you're not saying, "Oh, time to go,"
I've
unless the
had that
client
happen.
wants to, unless that
Right, you've worn them
no.
out. I fished with a guy, this is years ago, we were fishing the Blackfoot back before it was super crowded, and, we started at 8, on the river by 9, and I'm not kidding, we didn't get in till 8 o'clock at night, and the guy would have fished longer, but we were I think I had blisters on my hands, and we were supposed to have dinner with a friend in Missoula that night, they were waiting for us, we had no way to get a hold of them. But, it's rare to find a guide that will put in those kind and I don't blame them.
No, we don't we seldom are off the river in the daylight unless the
Huh,
client wants to, and that's seldom.
Do you start
So
later,
it's
though?
seldom.
Do you start later?
Well, we will in this, yeah. It
Okay.
it varies. Like, we'll start earlier in the spring, and then in the summer, yes, we'll start later because we won't be getting off the river until like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Huh.
Um, yeah, we'll
Wow.
start later
No
then,
kidding.
uh, because
Man, sign me up. That sounds
people,
great. All right, Joe, what's one thing people misunderstand about the Upper Delaware?
I would say that it is impossible. It's not. I mean, it's not a river for a beginner, although beginners can be successful. And it's like anything. If you learn something and you're willing to learn, and you have that attitude, like, I'm not going to go out there, like, I want to catch a whole bunch of fish today, and you've never done this before, or you're very new at it. Well,
Yeah.
if you have the mindset that that's not going to happen,
Yeah.
but if you have the mindset, I'm going to walk away knowing how I can do this later, or
Yeah.
be on the right
Huh.
track. But it's not an impossible river. You just have to have the right attitude
How about that?
about fishing it.
Favorite shore lunch?
Depends, when it's cold in the spring and rainy and maybe snowing a little bit yet. I mean, there's just nothing like some hot soup.
There you go, for sure. Wow. Do you bring a little stove with you?
Yeah.
Heat it up?
Nah, thermoses really,
Okay, keep it in a thermos.
hot
There
soup,
you go.
keep it in the thermos. Nothing like some hot soup in the summertime when it's hot and you really don't feel like, I mean, when it's hot out, who really wants to like eat this giant meal, that time of the year. Nothing like some hard Italian cheeses, maybe some dried sausage,
Little charcuterie
hunk of
board, is
bread.
that what you're saying? Getting
Yeah,
fancy, huh? Man, getting kinda
pretty much
bougie.
something like that. Something like that. It's just, you know, some days, I mean, the fishing is fishing, right? And you want to enjoy yourself on the water, and the fish aren't cooperating. So the enjoyment part that they're going to provide isn't going to be as great. So you might as well have some good food to enjoy today,
Might as
too.
well. It helps on a slow day, I'll bet,
Something like, well, it's not like eating good stuff when you're in a great place.
People like to eat, Best or most memorable place to have a meal and a beer or something at the end of a day on the water around where you live?
I mean, the whole place is. I've never eaten lunch on a spot on this river or even just had a snack somewhere that I didn't like being there.
Yeah.
No,
What about
I
restaurants in
mean,
the
there are a
area,
couple
though?
places I don't like. You know,
Yeah?
restaurants in the area few and far between. It's not like this is a culinary design, place
Yeah.
for uh,
It's not Manhattan.
restaurants.
Yeah.
No, no.
Are there
You're not
places,
going to find
like, at the end of the
5-star rate.
day, assuming there's, like, a bar, decent bar to go to?
Yeah, there's a bar right across my fly shop. There's a bar. It's a pretty popular place that, people go in for a burger and a beer type of place and
Okay.
maybe a salad or a wrap, something like that.
There you go.
There's a couple places around like that. I mean, there's just not like a ton of places. You don't have a lot of places to choose from,
Gotcha. All right,
which kind of
folks.
makes it nice,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
So bring some groceries, cook your meal in your Airbnb, when you're out here, and maybe you have a great meal
That's
that way.
that's not a bad. That's
Not a bad play. All right. Joe, thanks for being on the show. Great job.
Thanks for having me. It was very nice talking with you.
You bet. You bet. So how can people get in touch with you?
So they can reach me at crosscurrentoutfitters.com and shoot me an email from there or give me a call from the number on there is probably the easiest way.
There you go. All right.
That's it. Stop at the fly shop if you want. We're right on Route 191, just outside of Hancock. We're right on a public access too. So we have a common driveway with Pennsylvania State access to the river.
Good spot. There you go. Well, I wish you extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow Joe. And folks, thank you for listening to another episode of The Destination Angler. We'll be sure to post Joe's info on our website. And hey, if you get a chance, go out to my Facebook and Instagram page where we post pictures that hopefully Joe's going to shoot my way here. You can DM me or email me with comments and suggestions at shaig@destinationanglerpodcast.com. If you like the show, please share it with a buddy. As always, our music is by our Brothers Fountain, great little band out of Colorado. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again soon. Tight lines, everybody. This here.